I think it's a matter of realizing and just kind of coming to terms with the fact that it's not, write a blog post, publish it, and then move on. Like, you are going to constantly need to go back and audit what you have and make sure that it is still the very best that you can give your readers. Because I don't want a recipe on my blog, even if it was from 5 years ago, just floating around out there that might not be the best result. I don't want someone to ever come to my blog and try a recipe and be like, and it not turn out well for them.
That was Melissa Riker, and this is episode number 188 of the Chopped Podcast. Hey there, how's it going? I'm so glad you've joined me today. I'm Marley McMillan and I'm with the blog Namely Marley. I am your host of the Chop Podcast, where we are talking about all things food blogging. Wow, things are really busy this time of year with Thanksgiving coming next week. So I'm really glad that you've taken the time to join me today. And I just want to say, with all the busyness of this season, what are you doing for self-care? Is it a walk? Maybe it's a quick workout, or you can call a friend and have a quick chat, or even just a few minutes to meditate or write in your journal. I just find any of these things in a given day, especially when things get very stressful, can make a big difference. Sometimes when I'm doing the dishes, I'll just use that moment to watch the water run over my hands and over the dishes and to not think about anything else, because I feel like I'm constantly at this point like, okay, I've got to shoot this, I've got to do a video here, I've got to update this post, I've got to share this to social media, all of those things just going through my mind constantly, and it can be a real drag. So I think just having some moments of mindfulness can really make a big difference. Those self-care moments, they're just really important, and I especially think it's true for days like today. I always think like, my goal was to work for myself, and yet what are the ways that I am being a good boss to myself? So that's the way I like to think about that. No matter what that's going on, just remember, I am here, I am in your corner, and I'm cheering you on. So you got this. Before we head on to today's discussion, I want to give a shout out to Holly Baker of the site A Baker's House. Holly sent me a card, like a card in the mail. I was so touched by that, Holly. Thank you so much. Basically, Holly's note was one of encouragement. She said thanks for the podcast and how much she was enjoying listening to it, and just a note of encouragement to continue on. And I just want you to know, Holly, that really was so sweet, and it really meant a lot to me to get that in the mail. It was such a surprise, and I really appreciate it. I think it's such a great reminder of the ways that we can be inspirational to each other. Maybe this show is a source of inspiration for you on your journey to become a better food blogger. If so, I just want you to know that I say that right back at you, because you're a source of inspiration for me as well. So on to today's show. Today's guest is Melissa Riker. She's of the site The Happier Homemaker. I don't even know where to begin with today's show, because Melissa and I talk about so many inspiring things, from food photography to updating old content and the spreadsheets that we use to track them. And if there's a discussion about spreadsheets, this is going to be enthusiastically, passionately nerdy, but it's okay. It's really good. So Melissa went through a site audit recently, and so we ended up talking a lot about that and the specifics of updating old content. You'll be surprised to learn, the things that can be done to old content, even without reshooting the photos. At least I think that's inspiring, because there is a lot of work to updating old content, and, just finding the things that you can do and the circumstances that you have. And, obviously Melissa and I talk about the spreadsheets that we use to track that process, so that maybe you're not able to update the photos right away, but you can get to it later. And here's some things that you can do in the meantime, like creating a new Pinterest image that you can use the existing image that you've got and just make it work. So we talk about Pinterest and Instagram and the ways that you can incorporate social sharing into your SEO strategies. And I think that's just gold. It's just really important. So it's a really great conversation about the ways that you can take your existing content and the things that you can do to update it, or to even just to repurpose it. And Melissa and I talk also about the fact that she has purchased a second blog, which I think is very inspiring. And I can't even imagine the amount of work that would go into that. But at the same time, what a great idea, because it's an opportunity to kind of, A/B test a little bit and play around with some different strategies and see which is effective. I think that kind of approach can be so helpful. The more that we can have a mindset of experimentation versus one of, oh my God, everything's got to be perfect. And in fact, we talk about that as well. Like this whole concept of, the fact that we have this spreadsheet that shows how much we want to update this content, there is this tendency to want to get it all done today. But knowing that you're on this for the long haul and knowing that it's really more of a marathon versus a sprint, and that there is constantly going to be changes. I mean, if you're in the online world, there are constantly going to be changes that need to be made. So just because you're doing something today, best practices for today, those things are going to change over time, and we're going to have to be going through old content and fixing things somewhere along the way. So this is a great thing to keep in mind, because I think I don't know, I definitely have this perfectionistic mindset at times where I just want everything to be perfect on the site, and so it can be a source of discouragement. It can also be a source of encouragement. And so Melissa's just here to remind us to make sure we keep that in the encouragement mindset. That yes, constantly we're going to be making changes, and that's just the way it is, and to be okay with that. There's really no. It's not a destination to arrive at. It's really more of a journey, and I love that. It's really great. It's a great conversation, and I'm so excited to share it with you. So let's get straight to it. Here's today's featured discussion with Melissa Riker. Hey everyone, I'm happy to have on the show today Melissa Riker. She's with the site The Happier Homemaker. Welcome to the CHOP podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Marley. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, I'm excited to have you. I think you and I've just had a little discussion, and we have a lot in common when it comes to how we're approaching our blogging. So I'm really looking forward to talking with you more about that.
Yeah, things have really changed in the blogging world over the years, and it's a new game for all of us, no matter how long we've been in it.
Yeah. How long have you been in it? When did you start your blog?
I've been blogging in general since 2007, when I started
Wow.
my first family blog, because we were military and I had my first baby and we were living far from family. But my current blog, The Happier Homemaker, I started in 2011 when I was pregnant with my third son. And my husband was deployed, and I was really bored at night after my kids were in bed. And so I just started playing around, sharing recipes and crafts and decorating, and it just kind of grew from there.
And do you feel like, the very first blog that you started was a kind of, I don't know, did it give you had dipped your toe in the water, so you had an idea of what you were doing?
Yeah, it was actually really funny because, like I said, I started that blog just to share baby pictures with family that were in other states. And I remember the first time, it was a Blogspot blog, of course, way back then. And I remember the first time I realized someone had visited my blog randomly.
That you didn't know?
Yeah. And I was like, because it was very much a mommy blog, my baby threw up on me today. And, I was kind of funny, tried to be a little humorous with it, but I was super surprised. And then after that blog, I had gotten into kind of paper crafting, scrapbooky stuff. And I had another Blogspot blog. And that actually was pretty big in that world at the time. And then with this one, it was, I started on Blogspot as well, and very quickly realized I wanted to turn it into a little bit more than a hobby blog, and moved over to WordPress and went from there.
So the Happier Homemaker, that's kind of, it's a wide, bucket. You can put a lot of things in that. Do you focus mostly on food, or do you have other things as well?
Yeah, I don't love the name of my blog, but it's been there for so long that I can't really change it now. It would be a pain. Yeah. But I actually started it because I had a friend that was constantly complaining to me about being a stay-at-home mom. And I loved being a stay-at-home mom. I love it. And I just really enjoyed it. And I kind of was trying to offer things to help people that, might be struggling with staying at home, because I know it is kind of hard for a lot of us. I mean, there's seasons of it. So at the beginning, I shared some recipes, but it was a lot of I have cleaning tips and organizing, and I had a lot of DIY and decor at the beginning. But like I said, we were military, and as we moved away from our own home into a rental or series of rentals, I couldn't really do a lot of DIY stuff. We were overseas for a little bit, and I just slowly over the years started posting more and more recipes. So it's very, very recipe heavy. Probably 80% of what I currently publish is recipes, but some of my most popular content is actually more home cleaning, organizing stuff too.
That's interesting. And I find it interesting that you don't like the name of your blog. What do you not like about it?
It's very long, and there's actually another blog that's trademarked that's very similar. And
Oh,
so I kind of am always a little worried in the back of my head. I've talked with her years and years ago about it, and she's like, "You're fine," but I'm kind of worried in the back of my head at some point she's going to be like, "Maybe not so fine anymore," and I'm going to have to get a forced rebrand.
oh,
So
right. I see. So maybe it was fine when your site was smaller, and now that it's getting bigger, it's a different story.
yeah, it's a trademark your blog name. There's the lesson.
That's right. Well, I would think I kind of liked it because I thought when I first saw your blog, I thought I loved the the happier part of that because I felt like we can always find a way to be a little bit happier is the way I was looking at that, you know?
Yeah, and as I've kind of clarified my brand over the years, it does
Mhm.
fit really well because I share a lot of very simple, basic, no fuss recipes. Like I'm not posting chia seeds and like all sorts of trendy stuff. It's very basic, family friendly stuff, and it's
Yeah.
really easy. Nothing complicated. So it is a lot of the content on my blog is about just kind of simplifying things and making things run smoothly for families, and so it does fit pretty good in there.
Yeah, I think that I like it. And you know what? I There's a lot of things I feel like we don't have control over, and then we find ourselves worrying about those things, whether she comes and says something to you or not. I mean, I guess you just have to realize you'll deal with that when it happens, right?
Right, yeah, definitely.
So don't let it be a worry in the meantime. Just enjoy what you're doing. And
Yeah,
I don't know. That's maybe not the best advice, but that's how I would do it.
there's not much else to do about it. Like,
That's true. That's true. So did you always have, I like to ask this question about food. Like, did you have you started putting recipes on your site. I assume that you must have had some interest in cooking along the way.
oh, I love cooking. My grandma she's probably the inspiration for my blog overall. I spent a ton of time with her. I was the only grandchild at the time, and she was a preschool teacher. So she was very crafty and she loved to bake and cook, but she was very much the 1950s, 60s Jello mold kind of cooking. Like
Mhm.
it wasn't a ton of from scratch really complicated stuff. It was like let's make Watergate salad with pistachio pudding, and we did a lot of baking together. And so I grew up really loving a lot of the sweets cooking, and it wasn't until I got married that I really delved more into actually like I was vegetarian for a long time, so I didn't cook meat really until I met my husband. And um, I really had to learn that whole different type of cooking, not baking, as an adult. And I was really excited about it. I really enjoyed trying new recipes and trying new tactics. My husband got me the Julia Child books, and I went into this whole French cooking. It was a little too fancy for me, but yeah, I love it. I love cooking.
Yeah, I'd say French cooking is a big jump from 1950s
Yeah,
Jello
Watergate
molds.
salad. Yeah, for sure. I saw
So
my
what about
limits there.
Oh, yeah, that's true. What about food photography? Because I think we all reach this point where we realize if we want to take this seriously, we have to have some food photography chops. Did you start out with that already as a skill, or did you have to develop that?
I did have a DSLR when I started my blog because I had bought it when I had my oldest son and to take pictures of him. So I was interested in photography as a teenager. And I had taken photography classes back when you had to develop the film and everything. So I was always interested in photography, and my food photography was not so great at the beginning. And then in gosh, it was probably about 5 years ago, I got the food photography book from Nagy at Recipe 10 Eats.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And it just totally rocked my world. Like I already knew how to use my camera on manual, but her tips for styling food and like how to actually, where the light should be and how to break up, brown gravy and like that, it just totally changed my food photography. And that's probably one of my favorite parts of blogging. I could just take pictures all day.
That's great. And I think that shows in your photos too. The passion that you have for it and the styling, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I also I have hired a photographer this year. She's wonderful, and she takes beautiful pictures. And they're so in line. Our styles are so similar. And actually, after I hired her, I've learned from her, how she has styled things. And like, I think looking at my blog, I don't think you can tell one of our pictures from the other, which is really nice.
Now, if you love food photography, why did you hire somebody? I'm curious.
Well, I had a site audit with Casey Marquis in May, and I had
Mhm.
hired her around that same time or just before because I was trying to improve old content. And there were so many recipes that had poor styling. And it wasn't so much that I didn't want to take pictures of them, I just literally did not have the time to go make them all again. Um, so
Oh.
I hired her, and we have a shared spreadsheet, and I'll put recipes in there. And as she's a stay-at-home mom, and she's actually a photographer, a real photographer, family photographer. And as she has time, she will go in and take pictures and send them over to me. And then whenever I get them, I go in and update that old post for SEO at the same time I'm replacing the pictures.
I think it's really interesting that you just said that she's a real photographer because I would look
Yeah.
at you and think that you're a real photographer too.
Yeah, I know. I realized as soon as I said it, but like what I meant is like she has a photography business.
Okay. Well, I am really looking forward to talking with you about the old content because you and I are in the same boat. We're doing the same thing as far as updating that old stuff. But I want to ask you first: was there a moment in time when you realized, "Hey, I can do this. I can turn this food blog into a career," or did you start your blog out with that in mind already?
So like I said, I started my blog when my husband was deployed, and I was pregnant, and my son was already 4 months old when he got home. He was gone for that entire pregnancy,
Hmm.
in the first few months. And a couple months after he got back, I had kind of realized that people made money blogging. And like I said, I was a little more in the craft and DIY area at the time. And I remember sitting down with him. It was April of 2012. And I said, look, people do this. And I showed him on the computer, like, people make money with this. And I think that I can make money with this if I treat it as a job and make it a priority, and I have your support. And he was like, 100%, I support you. I could say I want to fly to the moon, and he would say that to me.
Oh, that's
Um,
sweet.
and so from that point on, I really approached it as I'm going to make money doing this. And I remember the first thing all I wanted was to pay my student loan payment because I had actually left grad school to marry my husband because he was stationed overseas at the
Mm.
time. And so I had this huge student loan payment every month. And I was like, I'm not even working because I had decided to stay home with my baby. And it just kind of frustrated me every month when it was time to write that check. And so I was like, oh, I just want to make $300 a month. That would be awesome. And then I remember when I got to that point where I was making $300 a month, and then I was like, oh, if I could just make this much more money a month. And then it just rapidly escalated to be a full-time income over the next few years. And I never imagined it would be where it is now, but it's amazing.
Yeah. What was your degree? I'm just curious.
I was in cancer pathology.
Cancer pathology?
Yes.
Wow, that's a highly specific area.
Yeah, it was very different. And I actually did at one point look at going back to work after before I had my third son. And the science changes so quickly. Like
Oh,
there
yeah.
was no way it had changed so much since I was in school and working in labs and everything that I
Oh,
had to find a new job.
that's right. Was your undergrad in something like biology or?
Animal science.
Interesting. Okay. Wow. I love hearing the backgrounds that people come from and end up in food blogging because it's so varied and I don't think there's really one path to become a food blogger. I think it revolves around a passion for food.
Right. Yeah. I don't think there's really, because I've looked at going back to school just on principle to finish my degree because
Yes.
my husband has two master's degrees and likes to kind of dangle that in front of my face sometimes as a joke. But it's like, what would I
Yeah.
go like for social media? There's really marketing. I learned so much on my own. Like, I don't really feel I need a
Yeah.
degree to push me forward in this career.
I agree. Speaking from somebody who has a master's degree, I mean, I love it. I'm glad that I admire the work that I did and the sacrifice that I did to do it. But that said, I think in today's world, I think the knowledge and the skills are just as important.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah. So you're developing knowledge and skills, and you've got a full-time career that you're pursuing with passion. I think that to me is that's very impressive.
Yeah, it's been an amazing journey.
Yes. Okay. So let's get into that old content because you and I, we both started our blogs a long time ago. We both have had this SEO audit that revealed to us that, that some of this old content, there are things that need to be changed about it. So you probably had a lot of content that you wanted to update.
Yeah, I had about 1,200 blog posts on the blog when I started this
Wow.
process. And it was insanity when I went back and actually started looking at what I was publishing on the blog back in 2011, 2012, 2013. There was just, there were posts that had just zero value at all,
Right.
nothing. And, when Casey explained to me, that your blog is like a garden and you have to take the weeds out in order for
Yeah.
other things to grow, it was just a really big wake up call. And that was, in May, so 4 or 5 months ago. And I have literally done, I think I've done 4 new blog posts in that time. Everything else has been working on old content.
When it's since May?
Yeah.
Yes. Right. And do you feel like that focus on the old content has had any impact as far as your traffic is concerned?
So this is the hard part for me because I am kind of an instant gratification girl,
Me
is
too.
that I also got hit right after my SEO audit with that little minor
Yep.
core update, and I
Mhm.
lost some traffic, some search traffic right then. So it was actually good that I had met with Casey because I was able to go in and start repairing those posts right away. So my traffic, I'm waiting for fourth quarter because I feel like it's all going to pay off fourth quarter. But it has been hard for me because my low season is June, July, August. And
Yes.
I didn't get that uptick. Um, and it's just like a long-term game at this point.
Yeah.
I think I've probably helped stop the slide that I was having because there were some of my most popular posts that were dropping in the rankings after that update, and I was able to go in and help them pop back up to where they needed to be. So I didn't get hurt as badly as I could have.
That's great. And I do think it is more of a marathon just based on my personal experience as well that some of those old posts, or if you're spending more time focusing on these old posts and things like that, I think it does take some time for them to start regenerating traffic again.
Well, one thing I did actually a month or two ago, I was very frustrated just with the process and how much work I was doing without being able to see those results right away. And
Mhm.
I went to Casey's Facebook page and read his reviews, and I started going back into a few years ago. And it was very funny because all those bloggers that you see on the first page for really common search terms, you started seeing their reviews from 2 years ago. Oh, Casey, I just had an
Interesting.
audit with him and I have a lot of work to do. So it gave me that, okay, look, they've been putting the work in for 2, 3 years on this. Some of them, Spend with Pennies was 5 years ago, I think, and they've been putting that work in and now they're reaping the rewards. So the 2 years from me now, or 2 years from now, me will be very happy that I'm sitting here just constantly plugging away at this now.
Yes, I love that. That is a great mindset. You're thinking about, the future and where you're headed. That's beautiful.
One thing I would like to say about the kind of having being so heavily focused on SEO is that I made a big mistake. I kind of let my Pinterest slide because I've always been a
Yes.
big Pinterest girl. And when I realized that, I realized my Pinterest traffic was dropping. And when I realized that and then I started aggressively pinning again, I got a big boost. So I think like sometimes when you get frustrated with the SEO taking so long, it's nice to just be like, oh, well, Pinterest usually gives a pretty quick effect. And, spend a little time there rather than only on the SEO. And that can help with kind of the little traffic boost to help get your mood up, I guess.
That's such a good reminder, and I don't know if you're the same way, but I get kind of, tunnel vision, I get very obsessed, and I have been so obsessed with updating old content that I I do. Like you say, Pinterest or other things fall by the wayside, and it's actually kind of a nice break to go back into Pinterest for a little bit, or back into Instagram or whatever, and then you go back to updating old posts, and it feels good. It feels exciting again.
Yeah, I think the SEO, especially because there's so much technical and so much research and keywords and everything, it will suck you in, and it can be draining on you. You
Yeah.
definitely have to, I think, take those breaks, as I've learned over the last few months. Otherwise, it can, because you're not seeing those results and you're working so hard, it can be a little frustrating.
Yes, exactly. So let's talk a little bit about some of your old content. I'm curious if, like me, when you got into your old content, you found like some. I know Casey's very concerned about having duplicative content. Like, do you have you ever seen that you got like 3 chocolate cake recipes?
Oh, I've done that so many times. I have numerous times posted a recipe and then realized I posted a few years ago, same exact recipe.
Yes.
Yeah, I've had to go in and dig into the analytics on that and then decide which one to keep and which one to redirect. And um, there's so many, or if they're very, very similar. I have a
Yes.
problem right now. One of my most popular posts I have is a dirt cake. And I
Uh-huh.
also have a post that's a 10-minute dirt cake that has slightly different ingredients and a different method. And they both rank first and second page for the
Oh my
same search
God.
terms. And I'm just like,
What
on
do
my
I
little,
do?
yeah,
Right.
on my spreadsheet, I was like, address this later. Like,
I do that too.
email Casey, find out and address this later. Cause I'm just at a loss of like whether to redirect the one to the other or keep them both because they're both doing so well. Um, but yeah, that's happened a lot.
And just to clarify for people who are listening that may not understand the issues with that, there is some concern that having two, they kind of compete with each other in some ways, and that's not really you'd rather have just one dirt cake recipe and let it just sail, right, and take off.
Right, right. So is the competition from my other dirt cake recipe holding my higher performing one back?
Yes.
I don't know, because it's the first time I've run across one where both of them are doing well for the same search term.
Yes.
So that's definitely, I actually just found that one yesterday. So it's something that I made a note in my spreadsheet to go and send Casey a little follow up note and see what he says. Cause I'm also scared to touch it
Yeah.
right before the holidays too, because it
Yes.
is one of my bigger posts, especially in the holiday time.
Well, and the other issue is, sometimes you'll find that there are two different search terms, and they support each other, right? So like maybe you've got a gluten-free dirt cake and your regular dirt cake, and you'll go and look and see that gluten-free dirt cake has its own search value. Like it's maybe 10,000 people a month are searching for that, and so you're good. It's okay to have those kind of similar contents but they're different.
Right. Yeah. I have some other recipes that are like that, that I've just, I have like a beef stew, a slow cooker beef stew, but then an instant pot beef stew. And those are, I
Separate
leave
enough.
totally separate, and they both
Yes.
do well on their own.
Yeah. But there are times though when, like you say, when we've just kind of, I have recipes like that, like on tofu. I'll have like a tofu recipe and a 10-minute tofu. And like, what was I thinking?
Yeah. I mean, but like before you hit record, we were saying, blogging has changed so much that it
Yes.
didn't used to be an issue to
Right.
repost something, because it was more, I was trying to explain to my husband, I was like, it was more like you were publishing a newspaper and every day was a new thing, and you built off, oh, yesterday I told you this, but today this is what happened. And you were just
Yeah.
constantly bringing fresh things to the surface. And it wasn't like you ever really expected people to really go back into the archives.
Right.
And I was telling him that the way I'm thinking about it now is more like my blog is a museum, and I'm curating all this wonderful, useful content for someone so they can walk around and see what they might want to look closer at or explore more. And it's more of like seeing it as a collection, and rather than, like a
Yes.
day to day update.
I like that analogy. And also, you could look at it as a museum with many doors. So somebody could come in through this door or they could come in through that door. And so you want them to, have a good experience, whatever door they come in through.
Yes, exactly.
That's kind of how I've been looking at it too, as I go back to some of this old content. And it's there are times I'll just be completely honest that I don't even like the recipe anymore because the way I used, I mean, I've taken cooking classes in the meantime, and I cook with more minimal ingredients, and some of my old recipes have a lot more ingredients than I would choose to have nowadays. And so there are that means I have to actually test the recipe, or retest the recipe. I have to, and oftentimes they're just minor fixes and things like that, but it can be a lot of work.
Yeah, I've done that too. Or I've gone back and a recipe, I was just like, I published that, but I remember I kind of felt like I might have wanted to tweak that. Or I've
Yes.
recently took one that was a slow cooker recipe, and I was like, this is not really doesn't make sense as a slow. It was a tortellini, and so you had to
Uh-huh.
cook the tortellini separately and then add it to the
Oh,
slow cooker. And I was like, that doesn't even make sense. Why don't we just make this a 30-minute one pot meal? And so I
yes.
reworked it because I'm like, you were just doing the same amount of work, but then having to clean your slow cooker, you know. So I reworked it and republished it as, a 30-minute meal instead of a slow cooker. So definitely tried to improve some recipes along the way, because some of them were very old. And when I retested them, they might not have tasted right or turned out right. Or some of them, I actually had recently bought a second blog from a friend.
Yeah.
And as I've been trying to do the same thing over there on a slower pace, but one of her very popular recipes, they didn't even make one of the ingredients anymore. So I had to go through, it was for a
Oh,
margarita punch, and they didn't make this one kind of punch she had included, but it
oh,
was very
right.
popular. So I had to go to the store and like retest a bunch of different versions of it to find another version that would, so I could keep the URL and keep, all the momentum that post had. But I needed to make it so someone could actually make it nowadays without,
Yeah.
I had an email going to Walmart, can't find this thing. So it's funny how often that happens, that products aren't available anymore.
Oh, yeah. So, I'm vegan, and that happens all the time that I actually have a recipe that it doesn't have a high search volume. So I don't think it's hit my radar as something I have to fix immediately, but I know there's an ingredient in that recipe that I can't find anymore. So I assume other people can't find it either. And so I have to find a way I have actually experimented with the recipe, but I just can't find the right thing to fix it. So I don't know. I think it's interesting to talk about this because it's good for people to know that sometimes updating this little content actually does mean reworking the recipe too.
Yeah, and I think it's a matter of realizing and just kind of coming to terms with the fact that it's not, write a blog post, publish it, and then move on. Like, you are going to constantly need to go back and audit what you have and make sure that it is still the very best that you can give your readers. Because I don't want a recipe on my blog, even if it was from 5 years ago, just floating around out there that might not be the best result. I don't want someone to ever come to my blog and try a recipe and be like, and it not turn out well for them.
Right. And have a miserable time trying to find the ingredients or whatever. Yes, I totally agree. I feel like I've said this a few times that I like to look at each blog post as its own store, like, or maybe they're in my store, and I want them to have a good experience with the product or whatever. That if I look at the recipe as the product, it feels really good to me that way.
Right. And so it's just a process to go back and really comb through everything you have and determine what is worth keeping, what needs work, what needs no indexing, what needs deleting. It's just, just so much to it.
So I imagine, do you have a spreadsheet that you use to track all of this?
Yes, I do. That's one of my favorite things about listening to you when you talk about your spreadsheets. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
a girl after
Do
my
you?
own heart. Yeah, I have spreadsheets for everything.
They are everything. Like I could even actually put my grocery list on spreadsheets. I just love them so much.
Well, and then after listening to you, I had to go in and figure out how to make it give me my percent finished. And then that was very helpful.
All right, I'm giving you a high five right now. Doesn't that just change everything? Like
Yeah.
it makes it like, okay, I did my recipe week last week, and I didn't actually finish all of the recipes. I had too much stuff going on. But anyway, it feels good to me. Like I felt discouraged that I wasn't done. And then I looked and saw that I was 86% done. So I'm like, okay, I could wrap this up. I can't do it today. So it made
Yeah,
me
well,
feel good.
when I first started, I didn't have a spreadsheet, and I was just kind
Yes.
of willy nilly going in there and no indexing random old post about my dog or my vacation or
Yeah.
whatever, post that I wanted to keep, but I didn't want Google to see. And then I realized, I was like, oh, I need to keep track of this, because I would go in to fix a post and realize I had already no indexed it. And so I had gotten down from about 1,200 blog posts to about 950 or so, and I used the export all URLs plugin
Yes.
to download a copy of all the titles and URLs and plug them in a spreadsheet. And then I've been slowly, just over the past few weeks, trying to go in and record what I've no indexed or what I've improved. So mine is like 0.09% done. It's like,
Oh,
so,
right.
but every time I click it, it changes a little bit. And
Okay, I don't know that this is the right thing to do, but I'm going to tell you what I did on the no indexed because just so everybody knows, like there are some posts that either have really shallow content or just so, you know, maybe it's like I did a pine nut chocolate tart or something. I don't know that. No, but I couldn't find any way to fix it, or nobody was searching for it, or I just didn't feel passionate about it, whatever. So Casey's recommendation is to no index some of those posts. And what I did is I actually added the word no index as a tag so that when you're looking at the recipe and, like when you do a search or whatever, and it shows up in the list I'm just trying to, like, if you search for something on WordPress and it shows you the list and then right there are the tags, at least I have tags as one of the columns, and I'll see the word no index right there.
that's a really, really good idea. I just made a note of that.
So just to explain to everybody, because when you no index a post, it's still there in your content. And you can go in and start making changes, and then you scroll down to the bottom and you see that it's been no indexed.
Right.
But if I add it I just type no indexed in the tag. So now, I probably have 20 or whatever, how many posts you have no indexed. Well, you know immediately that it's been no indexed.
Yeah, that's a really good idea because I've done that
I hope.
numerous times. Yeah.
Yes. I'm
Um,
not certain it's a great idea. Because I imagine somebody could come along and say, "Oh, that's terrible to have no index as a tag. It's going to break your site." I have no idea, but hopefully that's not the case.
yeah, I doubt it.
Yeah, I doubt it too. I just think it's a way of help. I mean, I don't know how many people actually use tags, but I use tags to help. The way I look at it is I try to connect posts. Like if I'm doing a blueberry chocolate chip cookie, then in my tags I would say blueberry recipes and chocolate recipe, or chocolate or cookies recipes or things like that.
I've actually never used tags
Oh, well,
at,
there you go.
at
That's why.
all. I
There you
have
go.
categories, and then I have in my master plan at some point to
Uh-huh.
try to do tags by ingredients, like main ingredients,
Yeah.
so that I could make at some point an index where someone could click on the ingredient and find all the
Yes.
recipes with that. But it's just so far from where I can wrap my brain around it right now.
Yeah. Oh,
Like I just want
I
to make sure when I do it, it's organized.
yes, exactly. And I was the opposite. I looked at tags as almost like or hashtags. Like if I mentioned Alton Brown in the post, then I would have a hashtag Alton Brown, and I'd have hashtag morning or whatever. It's like it was ridiculous. I had so many tags I had to go through and delete.
Yeah, I used tags a lot when I was on Blogspot still, and then for some reason when I came over to WordPress, I just never carried them over. And because in the old days, on you would have like the little tag cloud on the
Yes.
sidebar where someone could
Yes.
click those.
Right. Yes, that's hilarious, isn't it? Okay, so I'm kind of envisioning your spreadsheet, and if it's like mine, I'm imagining that you have the rows are each individual blog post, but then the columns are the things that you're actually addressing on each of those little posts. So, for example, on mine, the columns are things like fixing alt tags, or have I have I fixed, like a lot of times we'll have bad backlinks or bad links that in the post. Have I fixed the links or checked the links, and have I added backlinks and things like that? Is that what yours looks like too?
Yeah, so the first column is my index or no index. So I put like a yes or a no, whether once I've addressed the post. And then I have, it's kind of just a checklist I can go across where I have alt tags, I have keyword optimized. So I've already gone in and done keyword research and optimized the text. Are the pictures good? And I can still fix a post for SEO. Google doesn't know if my pictures are ugly. They just
Right.
know that they're there and that the alt tags are what they are. So I will sometimes go in and fix a post completely and then just make a note or like highlight in yellow needs pictures or needs in process pictures. So I can, put that on my list of things that need to be photographed. I have a column for that it has at least 3 links in and 3 links out. So I have at least
Yeah.
3 other posts coming linking
Yes.
to it and then linking out, and then I have a column for whether I have scheduled pins for it. Because some of my content, it goes back so far that I'll look in Tailwind and I haven't pinned it for 4 years,
Wow.
and I just forgot about it. So if I can get it on the schedule or add it to the Tailwind looping, then
Yes.
I can get it back out there again.
Oh, that's great. That's a really good idea. And I was just going to tell you, um, I have found some old posts that the quality of the photos aren't terrible, but they have like the landscape. It's not a tall photo. And
Mhm.
so what I've done is actually I'll add those into Canva and put a couple of the old photos kind of stacked on top of each other with the text in between it. And that makes it a longer photo. And so it's like, it's a way of, I don't have to reshoot this right away that way.
Yeah, a lot of them I've been making new pins for because they have those horizontal or square pictures.
Yes.
And I used to make the really long pins, but I'm trying to stay in, a more reasonable rectangle. And so
Yes.
it fits really well with what
Right.
you said, adding 2 pictures in the text. Or if I don't have some of them, I don't have 2 pictures. I just have one and it's ugly.
Yes.
But I mean, I'll just add a block on top of it with, some fonts and the title of it. It's just something to get it out there.
Yes. Because I do think there's something about social proof. Like if a post is getting some traffic from social, I do think it helps it in SEO as well.
Yes, I agree for sure.
Yes. So I mean it's kind of a way of I really do need to reshoot the smoothie recipe, but it's in the meantime I'm gonna do this and it works.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes if I go through my Pinterest analytics, the ugliest pins in the world are what people pin, and they do so well. I mean, like pins,
That's funny.
it. I was looking through the other day, and my blog's most popular recipe is this apple cinnamon bread, and there was a pin on there that was doing so well. It's been pinned over a million times, so
Wow.
it's amazing. But there was a pin, and it's not a picture, it's part of a picture I took. It looks like someone almost took like a tiny little super close up thumbnail of the top of the bread,
Yeah?
and that was the pin. And it's not a picture that I had by myself, is someone altered my picture to make that, and it was doing incredibly well and driving a ton of traffic. And I have a DIY post that where I covered a cabinet with a marble contact paper,
Yeah.
and someone penned the in process shot that has like half a roll of marble contact paper on a counter, and that has blown up that blog post on Pinterest. And it's nothing I have. I mean, I have a pinning plugin, so I don't know, they're just pinning it manually. It's very interesting what performs well on Pinterest.
So both examples sound like it was super cropped in and tight.
Yeah.
Wow. I heard somebody else say that recently too, that the more you crop in on a photo on an ingredient or whatever, it does better on Pinterest.
I've been finding that a lot lately.
Ah, so there we go. I actually have started doing that a little bit more after I heard that, and so I should have some experience to tell you about lately soon.
Yeah, I've been trying to make a lot of different kind of pens for each
Yes.
post,
Yeah.
and just kind of putting them all out there and just experimenting to try and figure out what's working best right now. Because I do know those really close in crops look like they're performing very well, as the video pens are getting a lot of impressions, not always like a ton of click throughs,
Mm.
but just kind of playing around to see what's going to work best right now because it's always changing.
Oh, it's so true. And that so therefore having several different pins, it gives you the opportunity to look back and go, okay, what's working best?
Right, and then I can take whatever's working best and make that, my social pug pen, designated pen in there.
Nice. Ah, that's very good. I don't know how you have time for all of this. You now have a second blog and you're updating all this old content. How do you do it?
Well, it's slow. Like right now I'm prioritizing the Happier Homemaker because
Yeah.
that's my money maker, and this
Yeah.
other blog, it's profitable, but it's small, much smaller. And so I'm doing what I can to boost that one. That one gets a lot of Pinterest traffic, not so much Google, but I think after the first of the year I'll work the SEO on that one a little bit more. But right now, it's go time. It's quarter 4. Like
Yes.
we just have to rely on Pinterest for that one for the most part, and just concentrate on getting the biggest bang for my buck with the Happier Homemaker.
Yes. I love that. And I feel like another reason I like the spreadsheet, and I do my spreadsheet mostly. I have some that I do just, like I've got numbers on my Mac and things like that, but I have most of my spreadsheets are in Google Drive. And what
Yeah.
I love about that is I can share with somebody else and they can actually contribute to, like, for example, I hired an assistant to help on specific tasks. Like one of the columns on my spreadsheet is a how to. So I feel like on every single post, I needed to do a how to make header. So how to make chocolate brownies, or how to make every recipe. I feel like on my site should have this how to make column or header. I'm sorry. So that was easy for me to hire somebody to go in and insert that and then copy the instructions from the recipe. But there's a lot of things I think you can't hire people to help with. It's too complicated. Do you agree with that? Or
I do. I'm having a really hard time with hiring help in that area, just because I want it done in such a specific way,
yes.
and I haven't had the proven success. I'm still kind of tweaking it. Even stuff that I've updated right after my audit with Casey, if I stumble back upon it, I'm like, oh, well, I forgot to write this there or make sure that
Yes.
all like I didn't get a really, really good system going for a couple months. Like it took me a while to just kind of internalize that volume of information
Yes.
and get it where I felt more comfortable with what I was writing. So I'm not ready to kind of parse that out yet. I did consult with one of his recommended VAs, and I think that I will use them at some point. It's just kind of figuring out how I want my workflow to go and getting a good
Yes.
system in place.
But at least having a spreadsheet can help you stay organized. So, for example, I shared my spreadsheet with my VA, and she was actually able to update that column, and I could see it in real time. I knew exactly what was happening. I could go in and check her work, because that's how what I did is I had her do one and let me go check it, see if you did it the way I wanted. I gave her feedback, and then every day I could go in and go and see what blog post she updated and see if she did it right and give her feedback.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love being able to share a spreadsheet and work off of it with someone
Oh,
else.
right. Yes. And you know exactly where they're at because you've got, I had every blog post on a row. And actually, what I did is I went through and highlighted the ones I wanted her to do because there were some that were on the fence of, like you're saying, whether you know index it or not. So some were on the fence. I'm like, don't even touch those. Just stick to the ones that are highlighted in yellow.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But I love how you did that with your photographer so that you were able to get more photos updated. So in other words, what I got from what you said is that you were updating photos, but you also had this individual, she was updating photos for you as well.
Yeah, so she would I would leave the link to the recipe and any notes. I had a recipe. It was originally a sponsored post from about 6 years ago, and I made a curry, but I made homemade naan with it. But I
Uh-huh.
used like a prepackaged curry, and I just wanted to move the whole thing over to just the naan recipe. So, I
Yeah.
made a note in there like just the naan. Don't worry about any of the other things going on in this blog post. Just make the naan recipe.
Yes.
So I can add notes, or if I want it photographed in a certain way, or just anything that I want to give her feedback on, because I haven't updated those posts yet. So and she will kind of get a little check mark when she's done photographing it, and she'll invoice me every 5 recipes or so, and then she'll send them over in Google Drive, and I have her send the big pictures so that I can crop them down the way that I want them, and resize them the way I want them, and have those big files on hand in case I need them in the
Yes.
future.
Right. Because you never know. Sometimes a magazine will come and ask for that high res photo. You never
Yeah,
know.
right. But it's been a
That's,
really good system, and it's really it's helped me republish way faster, because with a food blog you want those big pretty pictures on the
yes.
homepage, and it's helped me to in the past 6 months I've been working with her, because I'm photographing and she's photographing. It really has made my recipe index look better overall, because we're both using consistent photography, like same style. I actually hired another girl recently just for a one-off post, and she had a beautiful style, so I might bring her on as well. But it doesn't take me that way. I can concentrate on doing the actual in the blog post work.
Yes. On page.
Um,
Yes.
but I still like to spend one day a week making, doing photography and also trying to make videos as well.
Oh, I was going to ask you about videos. Are you adding videos to your posts too?
I am when I can. I'm getting a better system for it. I'm not super, I think what I got to the point was my videos aren't going to be perfect and they're not going to be the fanciest videos out there, but they're helpful and
Yes.
they're not ugly. They're just not as good as I see other people. And once I realized that it doesn't matter that they're not perfect, I started to be able to produce them in a much faster way. And that second blog I had no video on it at all. So the first few weeks I had it, I put a big emphasis on making, 4, 5, 6 videos from those recipes
Yeah.
because I needed that video player ad on that blog to get the revenue up.
Oh, yes. I do feel like the posts that have video definitely increases the dwell time. Is that what you
Yeah.
is that what you mean by helping with
Well,
revenue?
not just the ones like embedded in the actual recipe, but that video ad player. I'm with AdThrive, and that video ad player that sticks on the side as you scroll is a really high RPM ad. And there was a lot of, I was trying to just maximize the revenue of that blog as quickly as possible. And so I worked with my ad manager to add different ads. And that was one of the ones he said, if you can get any video for this, even just a few, it'll bump up your earnings, a good percent if we can add that ad to this blog.
Nice.
So
So I love
we
that.
got that up
Actually,
there quickly.
do you have you kind of used that as an approach to the content that you're updating? For example, one strategy is to go to your top performing posts and see what you can do to optimize those. Like maybe it's like 20 posts that you have that show up and bring you the most traffic. Optimize those first. Would you recommend that?
Yes, that's what I did on both blogs. I went in on my own, and I'm very careful because some of them do rank nicely,
Yes,
um, but I've never take anything out. I only add extra in if it's already ranking
I
nicely.
see.
Um, because I feel my gut says that if you're just adding a little extra good stuff,
Yeah.
maybe it's like, oh, now that's even more helpful. Let's pop it up another couple steps. But I'm scared to take anything out because
Mhm.
I don't know what Google necessarily likes about it.
So, in other words, if you have a post that's ranking high, it's doing well for your site and delivering traffic, you may have some story in there that's unrelated to the blog post, but you're not probably going to take that out. You're just going to add some things in there to make it perform even
I'll
better.
Yeah, I'll add like the H2 tags. I never used H2 tags before I talked to Casey ever. And so
What were
nothing
you
had them. And
using?
I just wrote a big old story.
Oh, you didn't have any? Okay, yes, okay.
No, I had nothing. And I wrote a lot of long, chunky paragraphs.
Uh-huh.
So I'm trying to break those up. Sometimes I'll move the story to the bottom
Yeah.
of the post, just to keep it in there because I'm scared to take it out. So I'm trying to work the best I can. Luckily, most of the ones that are actually doing well don't have those big extraneous stories
Yes.
in there. It's more the ones that could rank nicely but don't, and then I'll take them out before when I'm reworking it.
I think this is something you and I also have in common because Casey has said to me many times that I'm a little too verbose. I I say like 100 words for what could be done in 10. So I have to work on that.
Yeah, I when I was early blogging, I would tell stories and I just kind of assumed that my
Yeah.
readers knew my kids and knew what I was doing. And oh, I like I told you yesterday, I'm going on a cruise and
Uh-huh.
blah blah blah. And then I went through this phase for a few years where I was literally publishing like 5 days a week. And I
Wow.
don't I don't know how I did. I was homeschooling at the time and it was like I don't know what I was doing, but my recipes, they some of my most popular posts are from that time, maybe because I was just producing so much content. But I had 1 or 2 pictures in the recipe. That's it. There was no in process shots ever. And I was like, I made this. It's good. You'll like it.
Do it.
Here's the recipe
Yeah.
plugin. There was like no question and answers, no clarification, nothing. And so like I have all these like 250 word posts that I need to go in and I'm slowly expanding, some useful information in there, advice or tips or, some of them, it's like, like Watergate salad. Not everyone grew up eating that. I think it's more of like a Southern thing. I don't know. Or it's called different things, pistachio fluff and other places.
Oh,
And,
right.
so like, what is Watergate salad? You
Yes.
just kind of clarifying things for people that have never had that recipe before. Um, it was just, there wasn't a lot of, the recipe might have been good, but I wasn't giving my readers a lot of value in my post. So I was kind of one way or the other. I was either just talking a bunch about stuff that didn't refer to the recipe, or I was like, had 3 sentences in a recipe card.
Right,
So it's been a
exactly. Yeah, it's
challenge.
like,
And then I never had nutritional information before either. So that was a big one.
yeah. And luckily that's kind of easy to do these days thanks to, I don't know if I use WP Recipe Maker. I don't know if that's what you use as well.
I use NutriFox and Tasty Recipes. So I think it took me 3 weeks, or no, 2 weeks to get about 400 recipes needed nutritional information. That was one of the first things I
Yeah.
did after my audit,
Yeah.
is went in and optimized all those recipe
To me,
cards.
that one was an easy one to have an assistant help me with because my recipe card actually does it. It's just a matter of, yeah, there's some questionable ingredients. So we would always be in communication if there was some questions. But that's another example of like, sometimes you can kind of find the little areas where you can hire a VA to help.
Yeah, I definitely plan on hiring a VA to do that for the second blog that I bought, because there's about 400 some recipes over there and it's not just nutritional information. Like, they don't have photos or descriptions, or it's just really just have ingredients and instructions. So I do plan on hiring out a VA to do all that very, very
You
soon.
must feel like there's some potential for that blog.
I do. It was a very close friend of mine. We had kind of been in a little blogging Facebook group together since 2011, and I love her.
Mm.
We've kind of grown up together over the past 8 years. I've watched her kids grown up, and she is a grandma now, and she had always had another full-time job, and she just was ready to kind of step away, and she didn't want it to die a slow death, is what she said.
Oh,
And my husband's actually retiring from the military next year, and we have a couple other like little baby websites. And our plan is for him to come in, and we have a little LLC media business that houses these websites. And my plan is for him to come in and kind of be the manager
yes.
of these properties, and we're start to outsource a lot more of having VAs rework blog posts, hiring out. One of our websites is a micro niche website for our area, which is Savannah, Georgia. Hiring travel writers, ghost writers, to write articles for it, and having him kind of oversee the photography and the articles and manage all
Yeah.
that, so to kind of build our business as he's retiring from the Army.
Nice. My husband and I work together on our sites, and it is fun to work together. I think it's nice when you can reach that point.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's a big transition time. It's very exciting though, because I do see a lot of potential in that other blog. It's even older than mine, so it's been around for 9 years.
Wow.
So there's a lot of site authority, a lot of link backs. It's just a matter of, same thing I'm doing on mine, is cleaning up SEO and make we just went through all the tech SEO stuff of making it faster and optimizing images and all of that. So yeah, it's exciting to see potential, and but again, it's the long-term game of watching that potential slowly unfold
Yes.
as you make
What I love
improvements.
about that too is that you kind of have a tester site too. You can kind of play around with some different things and see if it works.
Yeah, and that site has great Pinterest traffic. So there's just so much SEO. There's just so many changes that can be made, and it's going to be really interesting from a data collection
Yes.
standpoint to just see how those improvements. I think there's a lot more movement, like drastic potential there. Whereas I was already kind of tracking SEO even before my audit. She was just creating really amazing creative recipes without really doing a lot of the SEO stuff. So I think it's going to be exciting process. It's just a little overwhelming
I
at times,
bet.
but
Do you have an opportunity for work-life balance, or how do you make space for yourself too?
I try to. I It's a struggle for me. I All three of my boys are in school now. My youngest is in third grade, so that's kind of a newer thing for me because we did homeschool for a little while
Uh-huh.
too. Um, I'm trying to mostly only work when they're not home during the day.
Yes.
And my husband likes to watch TV in the evenings. I'm not a TV person, so I'll sit on my laptop and kind of do mundane things like schedule
Yeah.
pins and edit photos and stuff like that. And then usually on the weekends, I'll like sometimes if we don't have anything going on, I'll do a big baking day and the boys will help me. They like to help me photograph things. And
Aw.
my oldest son is 12 and is interested in video editing. And so when I do work when they're home, I try to incorporate them in it. Of course, they like to taste test
Yes,
recipes.
right.
But it is hard because especially since I had my audit, like I feel a lot of pressure on myself to and with fourth quarter coming up and with my husband retiring from the military next year and this going to be a much larger part of our household
Yes.
income, I feel a lot of I can put a lot of pressure on myself sometimes with it and try it can be kind of consuming. So I've had to just be aware of that and recognize I can only do so much. And it's like we were talking about at the beginning of our conversation, it's going to be a long process and that's okay because it will pay off in the end. And it's okay if I put the computer away and go walk the dog with my kids because 2 years from now, it won't matter if I did it today or next week.
Right. I see what you're saying. It's easy to feel that pressure to think, I got to do it all today, but that's really not the kind of energy you want to be existing in, you know? It's frenetic. It's not healthy.
No, and I think that I love blogging. Like I am so beyond grateful that this is where my path has led and I think it's just such an amazing thing to be able to earn like a really nice income doing because I enjoy it so much. And if I let that pressure suck the enjoyment out of it, and that's why I have done a few new blog posts just because I'm making things at home and I'm like, oh, I haven't shared this and well, I know I need to work on SEO, but I'm making it anyways. I'll just might as well photograph it, make a little video and put it up on the blog,
Right.
because I love that. And I love sharing the recipes and I love hearing from people like, I tried this and it's amazing. It's my favorite recipe. And, it just, I'm trying to focus more on that part of blogging, even though I know I need to do all this other SEO maintenance stuff. Um, I don't want to suck the joy out of what
Yes.
makes it so amazing.
Yes, I love that. That's such a good reminder because I think if you and I sound similar, like I'm so anxious to be at that spot where my spreadsheet is done and I've got all my posts updated. But in reality, it's like you said, things are constantly changing. So there's not an end game. It's going to be a constant process. So we have to find a way to be happy in the moment.
Yeah, I mean, 6 months from now, you're probably going to add another column that you
Yes,
need to
that's
go and check
right. That's
everything off
right.
on, like something else is going to be on there. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that there wasn't how-to
Right.
schema. And so I have a lot of crafts and DIY that now need, me to go in and put a how-to schema on those. And
Wow.
so that's another project to take
Yes.
on. It's always going to be something and you're never going to be
That's
finished.
right. So to find a mindset that allows you to like I love what you were saying how you love blogging. Like I kind of feel like I go through periods where I get really discouraged and down and lately I've been really focusing on having a mindset that makes me feel strong and powerful and that's really helped me a lot and I feel the passion for blogging coming back as a result. So I think it's important mindset is.
Yeah, and especially when you've been doing it for a long time. And I can't even imagine, we started these two other smaller sites and they're brand new. And I'm lucky that I have all the knowledge that I have now, but I can't even imagine how we're very lucky that we started so long ago
Yes.
and have grown with the profession because coming in right now with all the emphasis on SEO and all these beautiful pictures, a new blogger, I'm sure it's very, very overwhelming.
Yes.
So if you don't look at it as a process and one of my favorite little sayings is, don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle or
Yes.
your middle to someone else's end.
Yeah.
And it's just like focusing on your journey through blogging rather than, looking at the person that's already wildly successful, you know,
Oh,
like a beginner blogger would look at my blog and be like, oh, I just want to get there. Whereas I'm looking at this other blog and I'm like, I just want to get there. Like you're always
right.
going to want to be at the next level.
Oh, there's so much truth in that. That's just beautiful. And it's a good reminder to all of us. I honestly, there are times that I look in reverse and I think having a brand new blog sounds beautiful because you could just start at the beginning and do all the SEO right. But as you say, SEO, things will change. And so eventually that blog would have to be updated too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's just something you have to like accept about this
Yes.
job and this life is that and it's fun though. It's wonderful to constantly learn, and it can be
Yes.
frustrating when things change.
Right.
But like just yesterday, they announced a Google Core update, and I was like, no. And then I was like, well, maybe it'll be a good one this time.
Right. It'll boost your
You know,
traffic.
yeah, you never know. So I mean, it's anywhere in the online world, it's going to be a constant growth. You have to have a growth mindset because it's not going to stay the same.
Oh, I love that. Okay, I have had such a great time talking with you. I love to ask these questions at the end of the interview. Are you game?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so tell me about your favorite food.
I think like single kind of food or cuisine.
Your choice.
Okay, well, my birthday is this weekend, so I'll tell you that my dirt cake is my absolute favorite food. And I only let myself eat it twice a year, once of which is on my birthday. So I've already got the ingredients. I'm super excited. Um, like my mouth is watering.
That's good.
I would make myself sick if I made it more than twice a year.
I know the
But
feeling. Yeah.
but as far as cuisine, and it's funny because it's not on my blog at all, but I love Indian food.
Ah,
Um, we lived in England for a year, a couple years ago, and both our whole family had never really eaten Indian before, and like even my kids were served Indian food at least once a week at the school cafeteria, and so we
wow.
probably make curry once a week now. I love it.
Oh, that sounds really good. I have a chickpea curry recipe. It makes me want to go make it now. It sounds
We'll have
good.
to go look at it. I'm always looking. I don't make a ton of Indian food from scratch because there's so many recipes. I mean, so many
Yes.
ingredients. My husband, when we were in England, was at an international academy, and one of my good friends was Indian and from India, and she taught me some things. It's just a little overwhelming sometimes in the kitchen for me.
Oh, I agree. I had friends on this little street I lived on. There were some people from all around the country, which is really interesting because I live in a very suburban, not multicultural area. So having people from around the country in this one little block was really nice. And this couple, they were from I think, I mean, originated from India, but they had in the meantime moved to a different area and then eventually moved to Canada. But they were Sikhs, and I had never even tried Indian food, and so they brought me to their temple, and afterwards there was this food, and it was just. I'm just looking at it going, this is the grossest thing I've ever seen. I come from a town of 1,000 people and I'm super like not into weird food. And I'm looking at this going, this is disgusting. And it tasted so good.
Yeah, it's there's so much flavor in it. It's
Yes, I loved it. Yes, but I bet to cook it is, I'd probably do a very Americanized version of Indian food when I make it.
Yeah, me too. I do. I buy the sauces already made and just pour it over.
That's right. Go to the Indian restaurants to get that, to get the real
Yeah,
authentic stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay, so what's the favorite app on your phone?
I probably Instagram right now. I was kind of a late adopter to Instagram, and I struggled for a really long time with it. And I just recently got enough followers to have the swipe up,
Yes,
and
that's
I'm
cool.
starting to really enjoy the stories. Um,
Really?
Yeah, and I'm trying to make myself go on there a couple times a day and just I'm the other day my husband was like, "Please stop posting pictures of the cat. You have a food blog." And I was like, "Sorry. I don't know what to post. They're really cute, you know?" Like
Yes.
so I'm just kind of figuring it out, but it's kind of like a happy place with pretty pictures. Like Pinterest definitely used to be my favorite, but the algorithm isn't my favorite anymore
Yes, I
because
agree.
when I scroll, it's just I see so many pictures of whatever it was that I clicked on last, and it's like
Yes.
I don't want to see that. I want to just scroll and look for things that are inspiring to me. So I don't spend as much time there anymore. And instead I go to Instagram.
I feel the same way. I feel like Pinterest, I just see the same content and I start to worry about Instagram because I don't know, I have no idea if I'm doing it right, but I click on the search bar and when I click on that search on Instagram, it kind of gives up a bunch of content that I probably have liked before or something, I don't know. But I'm starting to see repetitive like wait a minute, I have already liked this before, but I think what happens is other people repurpose it.
Yeah, I haven't figured out the best way. I don't like really on Instagram scrolling through my home feed
Yes.
because I see the same like five people over and over.
Yes.
But I do like going through the stories because, and that's why I try to post on stories because you pop up in other your followers' stories
Okay.
more if you've posted recently. So I feel like with stories, I'm seeing more who's ever posted more like the latest rather
Right.
than an algorithm. It's just the order in which the stories were posted. So I can scroll through there and just kind of see some fun stuff. And so I've gone from trying to post an actual picture on Instagram every day to like maybe 2 or 3 times a week, but doing stories a couple times a day.
Wow, that's impressive. And when you say scrolling on stories, that's the kind of that bar at the very top. You just scroll
Yeah.
across that.
Yeah. Scroll through there.
And when you're sharing stories, what kind of stories are you sharing on Instagram? Is it about like the recipe that you're making like that?
Well, apparently too many pictures of my cat, but if I'm making food, I'm trying to be better about like if like last night I was making my son had soccer practice, so I was doing a curry in my crock pot so that my husband would have warm food when he got home because I would have already left. And I just kind of did a little video of me pouring my pre-made curry sauce over the chicken, and curry for dinner tonight. And if I always try to show it if I'm photographing or making a recipe for the blog.
Yes.
Sometimes I'll just take a picture of my blog post on my computer and like swipe up to see the latest post or take a screenshot from my phone and put that on there. I've been trying to do polls more just to get that interaction, like so as people are
Yes.
swiping through. So like the other day, I was like, "Is it too early for holiday baking?" Right before this podcast, I did a picture of my little microphone, about to be interviewed on my favorite podcast.
Oh.
Just trying. It's hard for me. I'm very introverted, and I work at
Oh,
home, and I stay home all day. I don't talk to people a lot, so it's hard for me to kind of try to come up with something to share
yes.
that often, but I'm just trying to throw spaghetti at the wall and see what people interact with and what I feel comfortable with, and eventually we'll figure it out.
I feel the same way. I feel like sometimes like I don't think what is interesting about what I'm doing, but I guess there are some people who would find, like the fact that you're in the kitchen cooking and making, like oftentimes I make recipes from my site just because so like maybe people are coming over, I might make my vegan chocolate chip cookie recipe and that could be something I could share about.
Oh yeah, like I mean, my blog is like my personal recipe book. I don't write recipes down, like final recipes down after like testing them. My blog is my cookbook. So
Yes,
if
me too.
my middle son and I make banana bread at least once a week. So, the other day I pulled it out and took a picture, like we're putting peanut butter chips on our banana bread this week, and then I could link to I can do swipe up for my banana
Yes.
bread, so I'm trying to see those opportunities. It's just a matter of getting in the habit of thinking about
Yes.
doing the stories.
I like that. And so it feels like a habit to improve rather than, oh, I'm not doing this right kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so do you have any time for TV or reading at all? And if so, what's your favorite?
I don't really watch TV. Every now and then I'll like binge watch something on Netflix. Usually if I'm going to the gym and I'm going to be on the elliptical or something, I'll watch a show. It makes me exercise for longer. So I recently watched all the Outlander series,
Yeah.
and then I love Queer Eye. I love that show.
It's so funny that I happened to, my husband was out of town for a few days and I decided to watch an episode of Queer Eye and it ended up being the city I live in, Lee Summit, Missouri. Oh, what are the chances of that?
Yeah, they were there for in Kansas City for a whole season.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that. Okay, I just picked one show randomly and it's like, what in the world? They're in my town. That's
Yeah,
bizarre.
I love them. I'm really excited to get Antony's cookbook he just released.
Yes, they're impressed. I like how they have a mixture of humor and kind of in your face kind of stuff, and at the same time they do really good home redecorating too. It's cool.
Yeah, it's fun to watch.
Yeah, I like that show too. Okay, so how can people find you online?
Well, my main blog is thehappierhomemaker.com, and I'm on Instagram, The Happier Homemaker, and Facebook, The Happier Homemaker. My Pinterest is Melissa Riker, so that predates the blog, the
Ah,
Pinterest account.
yes.
And then my new blog is shakentogetherlife.com, and that has really easy, no fuss recipes and lots of holiday cookies and Halloween stuff. It's really, really cute stuff over there.
You said it's shaking together?
Shaken Together Life.
Okay, shaken together life. Wow, that's great. I love it. I can't wait to check that one out.
Yeah, it's really fun stuff over there, and there's a lot of big changes happening over there too.
Pretty exciting. Well, Melissa, I had a really good time talking with you today. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Thanks to Melissa Riker for being my guest on today's episode of the Chopped Podcast. If you want to be in the know about all things food blogging, including updates on this podcast, be sure to go to chopped.academy and scroll down to the bottom of the page and hit subscribe today. Thanks to everyone for your support of the Chopped Podcast. I've heard from so many of you lately, and I want you to know your positive feedback means so much. Your reviews on iTunes and Stitcher make such a big impact. Hey, why not take a picture of yourself listening to today's episode or screenshot it and share it with me using hashtag #NamelyMarley or hashtag Chopped Podcast. I love hearing from you. You inspire me, and I hope today's show is helpful and inspirational to you as well. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.